All right. Now, all this other stuff is ready to go in terms of materials. Now, the particles don't have any particular material on them. The default shading style will be fine for these because they're just particles. We do have shaders assigned to the geometry at the within the packed geometry level for the rigid bodies, for the scar stuff. The smoke would be a good idea. Let's go over to the material area. Let's drop down a pyro shader. So we'll say that the smoke uses that. We'll copy this color, or I guess we should really copy let's copy the color from the control panel. So we'll use the inside color, and that can be the smoke color here. Paste other absolute references. We don't have any fire or anything, so I'm just going to turn that down just in case it gets the wrong idea. And we're going to need a constant color for our laser. So let's go to the material palette and say, hey, where's my constant thing? Constant, where are you? I always lose this one. That's constant smoke. Constant. So there it is. We'll just call this laser. I guess I could have put laser on here too. That's okay. We only need to assign this like one time anyway. So I'll say on the laser main render, we'll put this laser thing on it. I'm going to go back to here and let's make it like blue or something, like a bright blue, maybe something like that. Very cool. And we'll make sure that we do not tint with point color because I don't want to get that black and white color that I assigned to that by accident. See, none of these should have use point color on. And they don't. Good. All right, so that's all of everything. All of these things are using point velocities. So make sure the sampling geometry velocity blur is on. I mean, the ground doesn't, I guess, because it doesn't move. But the particles certainly do. The rigids definitely do. The ground, the scar stuff doesn't really move. And I guess the smoke, we didn't actually end up saving out velocity blur for. But the particles, rigids, and this laser all should have a geometry velocity blur on. And let's go over to the mantra node. So what are we actually rendering now? We're not rendering these sims anymore. We can just type in RNDR here. All these. That's all we're rendering. You can even just say star underscore RNDR, but I don't want to get crazy. So that's that. So let's see. Let's do a render view on this. And actually, let's also do half resolution because this is going to take longer to render now. So everything's going to be rendered at once. I didn't add in the geometry lights or anything yet for the laser to illuminate anything. But let's just see that everything is working as we would expect. Cool. So everything's coming in. Cool. So it's working. I'm reminded by looking at this that we are rendering the low resolution particles. So let's go back. So I'm not going to be simulating the particles anymore at this point. So I'm just going to go over to the particle main sim here and just hard code this to be the HQ1. Cool. That'll take longer to load and longer to render, but that's going to drive much of what this image looks like. I'm also going to turn all this stuff off in the viewport. We don't really need to see it anymore. So let's go back to the render view and render this with the new style here. So let's see what that gets us. There we go. We can see we got a lot more of our dust now. So we can see everything. We can see, here's our laser, motion blurred. We can see all this good stuff. All of our particles flying out nice and blurry, like getting these streaks. We can see, it's all Looking pretty cool. So what other things we need to do? Well, now that this is actually geometry, this has the capability of casting a shadow. So we could hack it so that light will pass through it. Even easier is we can just, on the lights themselves, for the shadow mask, say everything but laser main render cast a shadow. So now now the laser doesn't cast a shadow anymore, and we don't have to worry about it. So that's pretty cool. What else can we do? We can actually make those geometry lights that I mentioned. So going back to our helper geometry here, I'm going to turn off our laser one over here. The laser itself should cast light, and the ensuing blast, when it hits the ground, should also cast light. That's why we have the two things here, but I'll want to be able to control them separately, perhaps. So the laser main, we just go up to the shelf tools for once and say geometry light. So the geometry light, we don't want it to enable one viewport. It's a light that basically just points to geometry, the laser main in this case, and it will use whatever material is on it to act as that color light in the shape of the geometry. So in this case, this is I guess this is the blast ones, right? Let's see. Oh, it's right there. No, this is the laser one. Okay. So I don't want it to self-shadow. I don't want it to normalize light intensity to area. I do want it to use our, let's say, we'll make a copy of this, and we'll call it like laser light. That way we can control the image of the laser different than perhaps what it looks like when casting light. So I'm going to override the material by just putting it on here.